Hello, 7th graders, and welcome to your first lesson on Netiquette, the norms of the internet. This will not only be your first lesson, but the only lesson, because these are concepts we really only have to cover once before we begin. The reality is that as we do distance learning, it's going to become a little more confusing on how to work and how to behave and how to do what you're supposed to do, because normally you're in a classroom all day, and you've been doing that since you were 5 years old. But now we're doing online classes, and I think it's safe to assume that almost all of you, if not all of you, have never really done school this way before. As you get older, it becomes more common. So those of you with really old siblings, like who are in college, might know about it. But for the most part, when you go to an online course, you have to know about netiquette or the norms or basically the manners of the internet. First off, why is it important to have manners online? Well, the reality is, people often use the fact that people don't know them on the internet to do things they would never do in real life. And usually, the things they would never do in real life are really rude or insulting. It makes it a really uncomfortable or, quite frankly, annoying place to be when you're online. So in order to make sure that you guys don't fall into that trap and become morons like that, I want you to know that who you are online has a real impact on what happens in the real world and what people know about you. And the third part that's really important to know is that the internet never forgets. The internet remembers and saves everything, so you should never put anything dumb online. Alright, rule number one, the human element. People on the internet are in fact still people. There's someone typing in that computer, there's someone reading what you're saying, and so if you say something hurtful, they will feel it. It's just that simple. Number two, remember that respect should always be a universal thing. You should always walk around knowing that people will respect you and that you are going to respect people. Sadly, some people are mean. Sadly, some people have difficult lives and take it out on other people. But no matter what, you should always be respectful because that reflects well on you and who you are. Lastly, well, last two parts. You should always consider how someone would feel when they read what you post, especially if you're posting something that could be interpreted badly. And you should remember the golden rule when making your posts. Do unto others as you would want done to you. If you intend to be nice to other people, then you should do that knowing that other people should be nice to you. Alright, here's rule number two. If you wouldn't do it in real life, don't do it online. It's more accurate to say if you wouldn't do it in front of your parents, don't do it online. So, some of you guys at school are a little free with your words, but I know from meeting with you and your parents, you would never say those things in front of them. And so, when you're online, you should never say those things. There are only going to be a few opportunities for you to act with the entire class, and I'd rather not lock you out of all of them just because you couldn't not use profanity or say things you shouldn't. Secondly, you're expected to act online the way you would at home, because guess what? You are at home when you're doing these online courses. You're expected to act with respect. It's universal after all. Say or do something that makes you look bad, and the truth is that other people are going to see it, so they'll know that you're looking bad. Just keep that in mind. Rule 3. Be very thoughtful in how you type. In a person, or rather in person, there's a lot of things that can be communicated without words. Saying something mean while smiling or laughing means different things to different people. Not everyone knows what you are saying online, even if it seems clear to you. Here's an example of how that works. There's two different ways to write, and I've written them here below, but they mean very different things. On the one hand, one is nice. On the other, it's very threatening. Alright, rule 4. Check yourself. No one is going to know if you're sitting at home in your pajamas working, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't think about how you work or how your answers look. Always do the following things. Spell and grammar check. If you spell something wrong over and over, I'm going to think you don't care enough to change it, so I won't care enough to give it a good grade. Secondly, read your answers out loud to yourself so you know that they make sense in writing, because often you guys write things that just don't make any sense when I read them. But if I ask you to explain them in class, you know exactly what we're talking about. Lastly, be courteous and patient with your responses. Sometimes it will take a little bit of time for someone to reply, or you should take a little bit of time in order to reply in a way that makes you look good and that answers the problem, instead of just hammering out the response in 2 seconds because you feel a certain way. Alright, rule 5, extinguishing flame wars. If people come at you online without checking their emotions, you don't need to respond, you don't need to talk to them. You can just close the screen. Or better yet, you can leave it alone. Because the reality is, it's not something you have to worry about. Raging on an internet forum just makes you look like an idiot. No one needs to engage with that. Be positive, be productive, find ways to keep the conversation on task and away from that sort of thing, and you should be fine. Finally, rule 6, show forgiveness. This is a hard time for a lot of people. We're all trying something new and different from what has happened in the past. Online learning is something that's new to all of you. Next, new things that are difficult can really stress us out and be frustrating sometimes. That's why learning in school can be really awful sometimes. You're learning something new, you know you have to know it, and you're not quite getting it, and you feel stressed and angry and upset and annoyed, and suddenly that person is really annoying because they're talking. You need to remember that everyone handles things differently. You should always seek to understand before being understood. What I mean to say is, think about why a person might feel that way, act that way, speak that way, or type that way before you go off asking other people to understand where you are coming from. You need to be ready to forgive, even when it seems possible. Those hardest to love need it the most. The people who are the most difficult to take care of or think about are often that way because things have happened to make them that way. Never forget that.
Now it's recording.
Now it's recording.
Time to say goodbye to Apocalypse Beard.